Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg and I'm here today to do a Friday Reads video. I'm already tripping over my own tongue. This is where I wrap up the week in reading and talk about bookish things that have gone on and anything else. I am not going to have a timestamp to the Friday Reads because I will just tell you up front, I didn't finish a book this week, but I did make progress on 2 books, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Before we get there, the big book thing that happened this week is that we got the shortlist for the International Booker Prize. I did a reaction. I'm really excited by that list, and I have not managed to respond to any of the comments on that video. I'm going to try to work on that this afternoon if I can. But a lot of other people seem to be very excited about that list as well, so that's good to see. And then I also posted my reading wrap-up for the month of March, filmed with Joel, where we talk about the books that we read in the month of March and a little bit about the bookstores that we got to visit in Seattle, which was so fun. That will be linked down below as well, along with affiliate links to any of the books that I talk about and all of that fun stuff. Note: make a plan for Independent Bookstore Day if you have not already, because it's coming, if you can afford to. If you can't afford to, obviously, that's fine. But if you can, support an independent bookstore. The date is April 26th, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'll have like a thing here, but I believe it's April 26th. It's at the end of the month. So we are probably going to be at Montana Book Company here in Montana and celebrating with them. We do it every year. So just wanted to put it out there. Heads up, it's coming. So make a plan, celebrate as you see fit, and support an independent bookstore. Also support your local library, because there have been a lot of cuts. The humanities is under threat in a lot of places. So support your local library every chance you get. It's an important thing to do. It's one of the reasons I wear this t-shirt a lot. So those are really the big things that have been going on. Before I talk about the 2 books that I'm working on, I had been thinking about, why did I not make a whole lot of progress in reading this week? And I think a lot of it comes down to the idea that I am trying to recalibrate a couple of things in my life, and inadvertently those things have sort of impacted my reading. So if you follow along, over the last few months, I really started having an issue with anxiety, and it got pretty bad at the beginning of the year. And I initially sort of fell down this rabbit hole where I was relying on my phone a lot. And I'm trying to get away from that. I think it's something that seemed helpful at the time, but was actually making things a lot worse. And in a way, it was making things a lot worse because it was allowing me to procrastinate on things that I needed and wanted to do. So I wasn't making progress on a lot of things that I wanted to do or needed to do because I kept getting anxious and then sort of withdrawing into my phone and checking Instagram, playing games, and all manner of things like that. So I'm trying to spend less time on my phone, and it's been very helpful. I mean, I don't know, but I do think that has been a big part of, or a big helpful thing that I have been doing over the last 3 or 4 weeks, about the last month. And, I'm not proud of this, but at the beginning of the year, I get that notice from Apple every Sunday about the average amount of time I spent on my phone in the previous week, and it was not good. It usually would be around 7 hours, averaging 7 hours a day, which is a lot. But, my excuse is I work from home. I spend a lot of time on my phone during the day because I'm on the phone with the people I work with in California, on the phone with clients and things like that. And sometimes I'm stuck on the phone and it's not actually relevant to me. So I end up playing a game. So 7 hours seemed not too bad, but it was creeping up to 10 hours. And that really didn't feel good. So I started trying to work my way off of that. And I am proud to say that the week we were in Seattle, I averaged only 3 hours a day on my phone. Like, that's a huge difference. And I really think it has helped. I mean, part of that is also that, if you remember, I was getting over a cold that week. So naturally, I spent less time on my phone because I was, resting at any point that I could. But I felt better. So I've been trying to have less screen time on my phone. And the way that indirectly impacts my reading is audiobooks, because I am not good at sitting still and listening to an audiobook. I tend to do it. Like, if I'm just listening to my audiobook, I'm probably doing something on my phone, like playing a mindless game that doesn't involve a lot of my brain, so I can still pay attention to the book, like solitaire or something like that. Something that's not going to preoccupy my brain, but I'm doing something on my phone while I'm listening to the audiobook. Or if Joel is traveling, I will probably listen to my audiobook when I'm out walking Teddy, if I'm doing the dishes, things like that. And then at bedtime, I would pop in my, I was gonna say AirPods, but I don't like using the AirPods too much. I have the analog ones that have the wire, and I tend to use them a lot more. So I'll pop those in and listen. But again, I can't just not be doing something and listening to an ebook or audiobook. Wow, that was a weird Freudian slip. So I would be playing a mindless game like solitaire again that I can just do without really spending a lot of thought, like nothing that requires strategy. So a lot of the time I would end up staying up late. So I'm also trying not to do that. I'm trying to go to bed at a reasonable hour, and I'm having mixed success so far. But so what I have ended up doing is accidentally cutting out a lot of the time that I would usually spend with an audiobook. And this week in particular, a lot of the stuff that I was doing for work, like sometimes I'll get a project for work that's mindless enough that I can listen to my audiobook. That didn't happen this past week. And I'm trying to spend time away from my phone, and it's hard for me to be tethered to my phone with an audiobook and not be on it. So I haven't found that balance where I can leave it over here and just, listen to the audiobook. I would also, especially when Joel's home and we take Teddy for a walk, I don't listen to the audiobook because Joel is there and we're talking. But he was traveling for work this week, and the only time I got to listen to my audiobook was when I was walking Teddy. And the thing is, we have this big loop that we do around our neighborhood. And when we had Guinness and Jamie, it would take a while. It could take 30 minutes to an hour because they would spend a lot of time sniffing, sitting, and getting tied up. Mostly sniffing. They would find an area and they would just sniff and sniff and sniff. There was one patch where Guinness loved to roll around in the grass. Teddy is very fast. So that same walk that could take 30 minutes to an hour with Guinness and Jamie takes about 20 minutes with Teddy, because he is much more laser focused on what's going on around. He might stop to sniff, but he likes to walk around and just see what's going on and see if there are any squirrels around. So, it takes him a lot less time. So I basically only got about 20 minutes a day to listen to my audiobook, which means I made progress, just not enough to finish. So that really, it has impacted my audio time. And I think one of the reasons that I have had such an imbalance in print reading and audio reading this year so far is because when I was feeling anxious, I was retreating into my phone, and I could listen to the audiobook and play games and not miss out on the book. And one of the things I was retreating from accidentally was print books. So I just would end up spending a lot more time with audio than print. So that is something that now I'm going to need to find ways to work in audio time again. But it's just because I've made this adjustment, I need to keep making the adjustment because I do think it has been better for me. I need to rethink how I listen to audiobooks maybe, or try to work them in other ways and other times, and maybe find things that I can do that will not involve being on my phone. Like maybe I can work on a jigsaw puzzle or something, if Joel's traveling. The other thing that impacted it this week is that because I am trying to be more present, I have been on an Oscar bender lately. And I've been watching a lot of older Oscar nominees, Oscar winning movies, and things like that. I watched The Treasure of the Sierra Madre this week and actually really liked it. Very dark movie, surprisingly, but a very good movie as well. And excuse me, still getting over the cold. And I just always have a lingering cough, basically. So I've been doing that. And while I am watching these movies, I'm trying not to be doing something else, because I think I also fell into a habit where I always felt like I had to be doing more than one thing at a time. So I'm trying, if I'm watching one of these movies, I'm trying to focus and watch the movie. And that has also been good. I feel like I'm actually getting more out of the movies than I had been in the past. But a lot of the time when Joel would travel for work, instead of turning on a movie or finding something to watch in the evening, I might just turn on something that I know I'm not really going to pay attention to, or that I can not pay attention to. Like I tend to rewatch The Great British Bake Off on a loop because I've seen the episodes so many times that I can actually read a book and, look up when I know something interesting is going to happen. Or something like that. Sometimes I'll even turn on something that I don't actually want to pay attention to, just so I can focus on my book. So I've also kind of lost my reading time in the evening. So these are changes I've made that have felt good for me. I feel like my mental health is better. My anxiety is lower. And I'm sure, I am taking an anti-anxiety medication at the moment, and I have been for a couple of months at this point. So I'm sure that helps. It has to. But I think a lot of the changes that I've made have also helped. So I need to recalibrate now and figure out ways to get reading back into my day, because this week definitely showed me that the changes I have made have not been conducive to reading, but because they have been for the better, like I feel better right now, I need to find ways to work reading back in. And, we'll see how it goes. But that's the sort of the journey that I'm on. So let's talk about the books really quickly. And I have them here, but I left a bunch of stuff piled on them. So here we go. You can probably tell I am filming this video a little later in the day than I would have liked. And I feel like I'm a little scattered, but I had time to do it. So I apologize. I'm kind of all over the place at the moment. It's just the way I am. But mentally feeling better. So the audio I'm listening to is Still Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. This is something I wanted to try to fit in before the announcement of the Pulitzer Prize, which, by the way, will be Monday, May 5th. They actually announced finally when it will be revealed. So you don't have to mark it in your calendars. I'm marking it on mine. So I'm excited about that, to find out what will win. And I had labeled Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange a front runner. And as I have been working my way through the book, I really think that could be true. I think it is likely that it will at least be a finalist, but who knows? Because there's likely to be at least one wild card on the list of finalists when we get it. And it's hard to pick what the wild card would be. But I think Wandering Stars probably stands a very good chance of being in the mix. And it's interesting because this is, or has been described as, a prequel and a sequel to There There, which was Tommy Orange's debut book, which was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And it does kind of quickly rush through the prequel part, but it makes it really interesting. So basically, you have a lot of the same familial lines that are in the book There There, but it goes back in time and tells the stories of like their grandfathers and great-grandfathers and how they were forced into Indian schools that sought to eradicate their heritage and their language from them and basically make them more white, which is a real thing that happened, and it was terrible. And the people who went to these schools were really badly mistreated, and terrible attempts to wipe out a culture. And in going back to those times and also dealing with the Sand Creek Massacre, and then working up through the generations to the people that we know from There There and continuing the story of what happens after the ending of There There, you get a lot of context for why the families are the way they are and the characters are the way they are and what sort of led them to this point. And even though it feels like we very quickly get through the prequel part, I really appreciated that segment of it because I think it adds a lot of resonance to what we know of these people. And I don't think you need to read There There first, because while it's nice to have background on what happened and the ramification, what led to, it's almost impossible to talk about this without talking about the ending of There There. But something traumatic happens at the end of There There, and a lot of the characters are dealing with the fallout and the ramifications of that. And it's nice to have that background, but I don't think you necessarily need it. So if you are thinking you need to read There There first, I'd say you don't necessarily have to. If you want to, go for it, yeah. But I think you could easily jump to Wandering Stars, and then, if you like it, go back to There There, because there's enough context in this book that I don't think you have to have read There There first. So I'm really liking this book. I think 60% of the way into the audio at this point, possibly even less. But I'm filming on my phone, so I can't double check it right now. It is what it is. But I'm somewhere in the 50 to 60% range of the audiobook. And I have really been enjoying it because it talks a lot about addiction and causes of the generational trauma, and it's just really interesting. So I can't wait to finish this book. Didn't make whole lot of progress on it this week. Actually, Teddy had just walked up. He's walking out. He was on an adventure with Joel, and they must have gotten home. So anyway, Wandering Stars. I am really enjoying this book. I'm glad I'm catching up to it, and hopefully I will be able to finish it soon, but we shall see. The physical book that I am reading is The March by E.L. Doctorow still. I talked about this in my last Friday Reads video. And if you don't remember, or if you didn't see my last Friday Reads video, I am reading this book specifically because I finished March by Geraldine Brooks. And that is the book that won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction the year that The March by E.L. Doctorow came out. And I think a lot of people thought The March was going to win, and it ended up being a finalist, but March by Geraldine Brooks ended up winning. So this is sort of the last hurdle that I need to get over in order to do my Pulitzer Prize deep dive on March by Geraldine Brooks, which I have already started working on this week. And working through my feelings about the book and the way Geraldine Brooks presented a lot of it, and that has been fun. So hopefully once I finish this, I can finish that Pulitzer Prize deep dive. And I'm really looking forward to that. It has felt good to be back on my Pulitzer Prize game. I had missed it last year when I didn't really make any progress on the project. So I'm reading this. And if you are unfamiliar, because this book, I think, has kind of gotten lost a bit. People don't necessarily remember it. Geraldine Brooks, I feel like people know March because that was only her second book and her status has really grown, but E.L. Doctorow had been a famous author for a long time. So when people talk about him, they tend to talk about the older books like Ragtime or Billy Bathgate. I don't hear a lot of people talking about The March anymore. So this is about General Sherman's march across the South. At the beginning of the book, Atlanta has already fallen. If you have seen or read Gone with the Wind, I have complicated feelings about Gone with the Wind. But that has happened. The Atlanta has fallen, and now Sherman is marching across the South, and the book sort of follows that. So the first part is in Georgia. And then I actually don't know what state he moves into after that. But it's that march across the South, and it picks up a lot of characters. And I think the first 75 pages are kind of overwhelming because you meet a lot of characters. The chapters are very short, so it's hard to get settled. There are a lot of characters, a lot of pieces moving around the chessboard, and it's hard to keep track of all of those bits and pieces. And I think I'm at a point, how far am I into this book? I am about a little over 100 pages, I want to say. 106 pages into the book. I think I'm at a point where the characters' storylines are starting to intersect. Like, you meet them individually, and then sometimes they'll end up like traveling with each other across the South. So now they're actually spending time together, which is making it easier to keep track of who is who. And General Sherman himself has entered the chat, so to speak. He has become a character. I think around page 70, he makes his first appearance. And it appears now that he is going to be a character along with all of the others. So it was a tough first 70 to 75 pages because it feels fragmented and it's hard to get a grip on everything that's going on. I think I'm at a point where things are going to start getting easier, but I have to get further in to find out for sure if that will be the case. And because it was difficult to work my way into the first 75 pages, I was feeling pretty frustrated. However, there have been some things that made me roll my eyes at this book, but there have also been some moments where it's like, okay, he's saying something really interesting here. So I have actually started taking notes. I am using 2 bookmarks. I have my bookmark from Brick and Mortar Books in Redmond, Washington, which Joel and I visited when we were in Seattle. And I have my index card where I am taking notes and writing down lines that I really like, that I think speak to the theme of the book and will be helpful for me to come back to when I work this into my deep dive about Geraldine Brooks's book, March. So hopefully this weekend I'll get to make a lot of progress on this as well. We don't have a whole lot of plans for this weekend, so hopefully I'll be able to catch up. And plus, we have had such wild weather. It gets warmer and then it gets colder, and it's been wild. And I think it has been cold again today. So, Teddy is back and asleep. So there you go. There's your little fix of Teddy for the day. So that has really been what's been going on, and the realizations I've come to about like some changes that I've made and what they mean for my reading life. And I think I just need to, like, obviously it's a change for the better. So I just need to recalibrate. And sometimes things like that happen. Like when we first moved to Montana, I read very little over the next year. Part of that is because I was going through my feels a little bit and like started a new job. And a lot of the time when you start a new job, you work really hard, you prove that you're doing well and all of that. But also And I didn't put my finger on it until about a year into our tenure here in Montana. But I lost my commute because most of my reading time when we were living in New York City was on the subway. I had a 45 minutes to an hour subway commute every day. So I wasn't driving, I was reading. And that's just one way. I'd have another 45 minutes to an hour on the way home at the end of the day. And that was my best reading time. And I lost that coming here because my commute, for one thing, I had to drive and it was 10 minutes. So I lost that time. And so sometimes things change in your life and you have to recalibrate. So I feel like it's not as drastic of a change, but like I'm just recalibrating, and we'll find, because the thing is, when you love it, you find ways to work it back in. So I'm just gonna, I might, and maybe this is all too preliminary to say, but I just need to work reading back in, and that's what I'll do. That's what I'll be working on. Hopefully I will have more progress to report on these books next week, and we'll talk about that more then. And hopefully I should have some exciting things for you for next week as well, although I haven't filmed anything right now. So we'll leave it at that for now. And I would just say, as always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.